And welcome in everybody to Scout's Eye on Football. I am Chris Landry, taking you through the world of football. A lot to get to today. We're going to talk, obviously, as we do each and every Wednesday at this time. We'll talk college football. We'll talk the NFL. We'll take your questions. You can join us in the chat room. Also, we'll be answering the questions that have been sent in via email. So we've got a lot to get to today and really excited to be with you as always. A reminder that if you're catching this show via podcast, we appreciate you joining us. We invite you to join us on Twitch TV. Very simple. You go to LandryFootball.com. You click on follow Chris on Twitch, and you'll see the show live at 9 a.m. Central Time every Wednesday. A programming note, on Thursdays, I do Landry Football Podcasts at 9 a.m. Central. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing the SEC Football and Beyond, which we normally do Fridays. Follow me here. Fridays at 9 a.m. But I have got a scheduling conflict, so we're going to do SEC Football and Beyond on Thursday this week. But normally you get Landry Football Podcast on Thursdays. You'll still get it. You just won't get it live on Twitch. But as we invite you to go to the Twitch channel and follow us, you just go again to twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football and sign up. It's free. Two things. Hit the follow button. It's a little heart in the bottom right hand of the screen. It'll automatically send you a message every time we go live and a link to the show. And secondly, chat with us on Twitch. You can say anything, go into the chat room and tell us what's going on, what you want us to talk about. We really appreciate your support there. So make sure that you absolutely do that for us, and we will you'll get a commercial-free experience. And cheer us on. Send us some bits. We really appreciate that. Certainly can use that help. And for all the folks that are involved in the show, and it's a great way of supporting what we do, is a monthly subscription. It's taken care of by Amazon Prime, so you don't need to worry about that. So we really appreciate you being part of the show. And as someone said, I think it was Kevin, a great listener and follower, says he wanted to look at ways to get bits, and you got to log in first. You just users can watch without being logged in, but you log in, and then you go ahead and cheer bits into the chat room. So we appreciate you doing that. So it is always great to be there. And again, the bits is something that is just a little extra. We really appreciate your support, and we also have some great news that we're going to talk to you about in a little bit from American Betting Experts, which are sponsoring this podcast. And there's a great way for you to become involved in being, better prepared than ever for your gaming activity. We'd like to think we provide you the football part of it, but certainly the gambling aspect of it can really be enhanced by American Betting Experts, which you can find on the front of LandryFootball.com, which you want to make sure that you check out LandryFootball.com, as that you can get the detailed film room analysis. We break down the games going into the games, the previews, then we review the games inside the film room. So we give you a good viewpoint of the games from a coaching and scouting perspective. We grade players, grade the team. So we give you a good feel for it. Take advantage of the offer. It's less than $10 a month. And if you get it for a year, it's less than $5 a month. So what a great opportunity to arm yourself with football season. Here, it's games when the football season is over. You've got recruiting, you've got the draft, you've got free agency. That's a big part of it. Those that are members all year long learn that it's like anything else. It's a learned process, and if you follow it and study it all year long, then you really are better prepared for the football season. It's been a very unusual season, and we try to get into, as we like to say, if it involves players, teams, coaches, schemes, we got it covered for you at LandryFootball.com. So, want to get into kind of a recap of the week that was, and I want to get into some things of what I'm seeing on film and what I think is really relevant. And I'm laughing here. This is great. Really appreciate one of our big. How about this for a second? I don't know, watching Landry football on Twitch while in class online at the University of South Florida. Okay, Rich, if you get into some trouble there, I don't want to be blamed for that. I don't want to be called by a professor there, so appreciate that. And I also got to say this. This is LandryFootball.com, cheaper than Netflix. And then Kevin says, yes, better in better content. Really appreciate you. All right, so a couple of things that kind of stood out over the week. And I kind of like the mixed college in the NFL, but maybe kind of stick on one and then go to the next. But a couple of things that jumped out at me. And one was maybe the biggest game of the weekend overall in the entire weekend was Georgia, Alabama. And a lot of concerns, I guess, for Georgia fans and a lot of interest by Alabama fans on how this was going to play out. And as I studied the film, and I've got the film grades up on Landry Football, but, you know, what stood out was the fact that this Alabama offense really has shown no discernible weakness. And I've discussed it on the Film Room show with Scott Seidenberg yesterday here on this channel. We catch that every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central. This Alabama offensive line is grading out well in both the run and pass game. They're doing a great job picking up the blitz. Everybody says, you got to blitz him. You better get home if you blitz. Blitzing is always not the answer. In fact, it's very often not the answer. It's, again, I've always say how you blitz, where you blitz from. They pick up the blitz very well. Mac Jones has been phenomenal. Of all the things he's done best, it's poise under pressure and poise in the face of blitz. No question about that. The receivers are big-time playmakers. After the catch, they're great as route runners, getting deep. They do a great job schematically of getting guys open. And so they cross guys up. So they take a very talented Georgia defense that's played very well. And we've discussed it. That's one defense that looks like they're getting it. They destroyed that Georgia defense. There is no question about that. Alabama can run the football, the outside zone, the power game. They really can do pretty much everything. They can pick you apart, and they did. The difference in the game, and we discussed it, was what can Georgia do offensively? And the answer is that you've got to be able to – people will identify your weakness. People will take away what you do well, make you play left-handed, which we like to say, make you play towards the part of the game that's not your strength. And that's Georgia's passing game. Now, there's multifaceted. Well, the quarterback's not good. Well, okay, we'll get into the quarterback evaluation. But people make snap judgment. So let me just break it down what's really happening on tape. What I saw is a pretty good offensive scheme. I thought they did a good job getting some guys open. I thought Stetson Bennett was a little late finding them. I thought he was inaccurate when he did find them. I thought he was a little late on getting the ball out at times. I thought there were some unfinished routes where, you got to run a post corner. You're not as sharp getting to the corner. It's that split second of difference. you're seeing that, say, in Alabama's offense by comparison, that you just don't see right now in Georgia's offense. So there's no question that they need better quarterback play. Well, they absolutely can't win. I don't think they will beat an Alabama unless Alabama comes back to the pack if they play again. I don't think they'll beat Alabama unless Alabama struggles, comes back to the pack, unless Georgia gets better quarterback play. Now, certainly Georgia can win, and they can win the way they're doing it, and there will be a lot of optimism going forward with their ability to just bank wins the rest of the way. But to win at their highest level, to win in games that they feel is the next step for Georgia, I'm not sure that they're ready to do that against playoff caliber teams. In fact, I think Georgia is not a playoff caliber team. Now, there is not a fourth team. Okay, so Georgia's got as good a chance as anybody, but there's not a fourth team. Just they don't match up with Clemson or Alabama, and I don't think they'll match up with Ohio State. More on that in a second. But what I see is, maybe a little bit of resistance to trying to open up things offensively, because if you don't protect the football, pardon me, you turn the football over, then you take even games against good teams, not great, not elite, but against good teams, and you put them in peril. If you turn the football over, you make mistakes. There's no question. People say, well, Georgia made mistakes in the second half. That was the difference, and Alabama dominated. Well, the domination was done with the lead and the game control going into the third quarter. Once Georgia was behind in the game, and they can't run the passing game through the run game, that Georgia becomes an average team at best offensively. They just cannot. They can't be pass first. And if time becomes an element, and if you're not running the football well enough because somebody can slow down your run game, and you don't have any answers in the passing game, then what you're going to see is not just ineffectiveness, not just incompletions and punting, and your defense is on the field more and more. What you're seeing is turnovers, and now your defense is on the field in quicker intervals and bad field position. You lose the hidden field battle. Then that becomes a little bit easier for somebody to beat you. And we're seeing, a team, and we saw a team in Alabama that was the difference in the game. And I've got a couple of questions here that was brought in relative to this, and we'll get into, you think JT Daniels will make a difference, quarterback for Georgia, unsure how healthy he is. Yeah, that's the big issue is, look, it's not just how healthy he is and whether he's ready to go, whether he's been cleared. He hasn't been cleared most of the fall practice, so he doesn't have the reps. So when he's ready is a little bit of a nebulous thing. I don't know. I'm not in there coaching him every day. Ready is when you're able to take it from the classroom to the practice field and then execute it, replicate it on the practice field. Then you're ready to go in the game. Well, I can't tell you where he is because I'm not coaching him. But it's pretty easy to know when you're ready, when you're in there. But they're obviously don't feel like he's ready. There's always on the outside the pending, but well, you're not going to get it done with Stetson Bennett. You just soon play him. Well, yeah, you play JT Daniels and you turn the football over from the beginning, and all of a sudden you end up losing, games. I'm trying to remember every game on Score Georgia's schedule coming up. You got, certainly the situation going up with Florida and Missouri and Kentucky and down the road. I mean, they're going to win those games with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. The key is, can they play well enough if JT Daniels is ready to go, when he's ready to go? They don't need him to play winning football in those games. They need him to protect the football and then get him to where you can be a little bit more expansive with the passing game so that when you play in Alabama again in the SEC championship game, that gives you a chance. So the answer to your question is it's their best chance. Spartan Martin says, Mac Jones versus Trevor Lawrence, who's playing better? Actually, Mac Jones has not taken a backseat. Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback. Mac Jones is graded out just as well. But Trevor's on a different level in what he can do. He has even more mobility and more experience. He's not playing as I say, we're not playing tough competition. It's a I'm trying to think. Is Bennett the only thing holding Georgia back? Well, it's the major thing holding them back. It's the as I said, it's a byproduct to me of the passing game as a whole, and I think that's a part of it. I think it's a big part of it, but I do think they've got to grow their passing game. Alabama, as I would caution folks to get too excited about the devastation of the defense against Ole Miss, I would caution everybody to be overly excited in a positive vein about how great their defense looked in the second half. They were very good against Georgia, shut them out, created picks, going up against a Georgia offense that, quite frankly, if they can't run the running game, passing game through the running game, they're not very good. So I think time will tell, and I think Bama will get increasingly better. This offense is really helps them out, but I do think ball possession, running the football is going to help this defense, and I just think that this is not a great Bama defense. Okay, it's not great. It's not going to be as good as it was in the old days because of the style of play is different. But I think they can be good. I think they can be better going forward. Arkansas has been the biggest surprise positively. How are they doing it? People have asked. First of all, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of positive excitement. That's generic. What does that really mean? They're playing loose. They're playing aggressively. They're not really concerned about the expectations. They're just trying to have fun, rely on the aggressiveness, and then in that process, what they've done is simplify things. And it's everybody says, why doesn't everybody simplify things? I think there's a lot to that. When you can't it's better to do one or two things really well than have a whole bunch of things that you're just average at. Offensively, they've done a good job with getting Felipe Franks rolled out, some simple high-low reads. It's a strength of his. It's not a lot of progressions that keep the ball out of harm's way. They do a good job, Kendall Braz does, of scheming guys open, and it's a little bit new. I do think they're going to have some issues going forward. I think A&M, although certainly Alabama, I tell you, Tennessee's got some work to do. Florida, who knows what's going on there. I don't think they'll be able to outscore Florida, but, again, I thought that Ole Miss would be able to outscore them. And, LSU, Missouri, I mean, they're not easy games, certainly games in which people will say, well, they're better than those teams. Well, they've looked better than those teams. And part of the reason why when you may look good, but the reasons why you look good are part of the processes of which you really play sound football. And I talked a little bit offensively with Barry Odom. He simplified things on defense, playing a lot of two deep, some two deep man under, keeping things in front of them. But they haven't faced a lot of people that can attack it. Now, Ole Miss is a perfect example of, if you look at Ole Miss against Alabama, you'd think they'd score a ton of points against Arkansas, right? Ole Miss didn't do the things that they have done well offensively this year against Arkansas. And it wasn't all, boy, Arkansas scheme gave him trouble. No, it was the tempo and the mistakes, unforced errors by Ole Miss that cost them. Arkansas deserves credit, but not everybody's going to falter in that regard. So, if Arkansas slips a little bit, what Arkansas is doing is they're doing all the little things well. If the little things start to cease to be as sharp, then that's where the margin of error is just, it can flip the other way, and people say, oh, boy, they're really struggling. The more you got film on what they're doing offensively and defensively, the easier it is to be able to attack them. And so I think that if you're looking at Arkansas, I'm very respectful of what they've done, but I do think there's a little bit of a limit. And I think the limit really depends upon, not when I say a limit on what they can do, not the wins, because, heck, everything's relative to don't like their chances against A&M. Tennessee needs to play better, but that's certainly tough. Florida. But I do think that there is a couple more wins on that schedule. I really do. They've got 6 games. I don't think 2 more wins are out of the question. 3, they probably need a little help. Some questions there. Where do you rank Arkansas's defense? Well, how they've played relative to their talent level, very, very good as anybody. It's not it's not as talented, nor is as good or as multidimensional as others, but they've performed very well. Any chance that Franks get drafted after this season? He's a camp guy, late round guy at best. He's not a make it guy in the NFL. But what they have done is created some energy, and I think they're coached very well, and that's had a big part of what is happening there. Right now, I do not see a 4th team, a playoff caliber team that's 4th. If you look at, everybody talks about rankings. Everybody wants to talk, what's the top 5? Well, there is no top 5. Okay, everybody looks at the rankings. Notre Dame's 3rd, and Georgia drops, and this. Well, Ohio State hadn't played. Look, I mean, there's ranking is immaterial. It's how you grade them. And there's a Clemson and Alabama, and I think we'll see Ohio State in that group. And then there's like a huge gap. So there's 3, and then there's, nobody at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I mean, and then start with a Notre Dame and Georgia. But to say that, well, Notre Dame, Georgia is 4th, it doesn't matter. North Carolina was 5th. They were fraudulent at 5th. And I think all these teams are really, really flawed. And I'm not saying that 1, 2, and 3 are not going to be flawed. The others are more flawed. And I think it's going to come down to 1, 2, 3 is going to be really easy, and pick somebody. There's going to be an argument on who 4 is. There's not going to be one that is really good, that's going to excite you, or is going to be a real threat in the playoffs. And we've seen the playoffs become very, very lopsided. The Big Ten starts this week, and it's a really good week for them to get. Well, it's like to them they've started a few weeks ago, but the reality is they've got a good slate this week to open it up. I think a good slate, and they kind of got center stage. Nebraska, Ohio State, we'll see early just how sharp is Ohio State's out of the gate. Penn State, Indiana is a very sneaky game, and I think Indiana is very capable. What do I expect? Michigan, Minnesota is going to be a very, very intriguing game. In Minnesota, that Michigan has to watch. Look, I think that right now what I'm looking for is Ohio State have any flaws, or they truly are a clean team where they don't have any real flaws and they're in that top 3? I think they are. And is there, so Whether that turns out to be true or not, that's the first thing I'm looking for. 2, is there anybody else that's going to emerge in the Big 12 that is going to be a playoff threat? How good will Penn State or Michigan be and Wisconsin be? I mean, any of them be good enough to contend with a Notre Dame, Georgia, A&M, anybody that ends up with one loss? That's kind of what we're looking at. Who's for? Now, Oklahoma State, throw them in the mix. No, none of them are really playoff caliber teams, but one of those group of teams I just threw out going to make the playoffs. Maybe a couple if one of the top teams falter. So I'm very excited. We're going to have the breakdowns, obviously. Happy to have all the breakdown games for the Big Ten this week. Another intriguing game, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. Want to see a defense stand up here in this game. Want to see if Oklahoma State is going to end up doing this. Want to see Iowa State's play up front. Can they possess the football, run the football against this Oklahoma State defense? These are two teams that Iowa State usually plays pretty good defense. They're a pretty good line of scrimmage team. Oklahoma State, not so much. They have a little bit different look here with the running game and the defense, so I'm curious to see with that. The SEC has a weak-looking schedule. Alabama, and you never know how it's going to go, though. Alabama, Tennessee. Can Tennessee get off the mat and at least fight? We're going to discuss some problems on the Plains in Auburn. This is a big game against Ole Miss. South Carolina, look, they beat a collapsing Auburn team and a bad Vanderbilt team. This is opening up for Will Muschamp in that it's a chance to go on the road and beat an LSU team that's not very good. And I think that while that may be a little fool's goal, it absolutely, perception-wise, could help his standing in getting another year combined with the whole COVID situation. So that's kind of a look. Problems on the Plains, Auburn. Look, what we're seeing there is we kind of have a tendency in football to call it they're neither fish nor fowl. What we mean by that is, what is their identity? What is Auburn's identity? Their offensive line play is not very good. They're not consistent enough running the football. At times they are. They're overly reliant on the passing game. Their passing game lacks sophistication. You could see that Chad Morris is coming in, but that doesn't look like Chad Morris's offense. And what this always sends up the signal of, okay, what are they going to do? Is Gus going to become more involved? Will Gus call the plays? Defensively, they don't have the stand-up guys that can take over a game if the offense is faltering. And they just looked discombobulated against South Carolina. They had every chance to win it, but I never got the feeling that they would win it. It's a weird feeling watching. Big picture, there's a lot of money owed to Gus. We're deep into the tenure to where people are kind of like frustrated with him. I mean, the only thing that saved Gus is that he's got some wins against Nick Saban, which has saved him. He's not done well against LSU. He's not done well against the crossover Georgia. And they have underachieved and are very simplistic to the point where they're pretty easy to defend. When they can hit it right with a quarterback play, they sometimes can get you. But boy, it's just few and far between. So they've got some real issues. At Tennessee, got some concerns there. Jeremy Pruitt fired Jimmy Brumbaugh, the defensive line coach. Had nothing to do with the defensive line play this past week. That is more to do with philosophical issues. And my concern is Derek Kingsley was the guy that really wanted him, defense coordinator. Ainsley, I'm sorry. You're dealing with some issues with not being on the same page. And you wonder if Jeremy's message is not getting across. Did Jeremy not do his homework when he hired him? He hired the guy in February. And again, it was recommended by his defensive coordinator. What's gone wrong there? Well, something went wrong in the communication, the philosophical butting of heads came to a head. And, you know, in one respect, you make the move. You felt a move needed to be made. Move forward with that. If you, but you wonder a little bit if it's a little bit of a panic, because that loss and how it looked against Kentucky set that program back. And they're going to play an Alabama team, which even if they play better, even if they do things better in this game, the loss is going to look as significant. So to the public, it's going to look like another disaster. It's just that the team is a lot better. And this offense is just infinitely better than Kentucky's, Alabama's, that is. So it's going to be really difficult. Look, Jeremy wants to build a program. We talked about Georgia. That's exactly the model that he wants. He wants to have a program that's built around a great defense and a running game, really good recruiting, and wants to marginalize the quarterback. I think in today's game, you can only hide your quarterback so much. You can only play so well around the quarterback. Now, you can win games. You're not going to win championships doing that. And I don't know that they're ever going to win championship with Jeremy Pruitt, but I think there's a lot of belief by some fan bases that they could. So they're a Georgia, a knockoff level of Georgia. Georgia's at a different level from a talent level standpoint, and Tennessee's kind of using the same model. They're just not nearly where Georgia is. So there's problems. And look, they're not going to make any move on Jeremy. Philip Fulmer just gave a extension to Jeremy Pruitt right before the season, right during the season, right at the beginning of it. So this is a move that they're sticking with, and there may be staff changes, but there looks to be some disorganization and maybe even some level of dysfunction here. All right, let's answer some questions I got here, but let's also go into the chat room. Let's go ahead. OSU is replacing 2 first-round corners. Any chance there's a major drop-off? There'll be some drop-off, but there's really good, young, talented corners there. Why has Hubbard struggled so much this season? A lot to do with the offensive line play, which is going to be the key. Judah Hubbard's the key to their game. Greg says, good morning. What are your thoughts about watching SEC defenses giving up a lot of points now? The narrative has always been the Big 12 doesn't play defense. Well, now we see teams like Georgia give up a lot of points to Bama, or Ole Miss scoring a bunch in Bama. Now that this is happening in the SEC, what happened? I think it's just the style of college football catching up to SEC defenses. I think it is a part of it. But it is no excuse, whether it's happening in the Big 12 or the SEC. You've got limitations there. I would say this, that you've got to be able to play, as I've said, good defense, even if it's situationally. You've got to get off the field on third downs, and you've got to get off the field in the red zone. If you don't, you're just a shootout team. And it may be, and you can look at it and say that, oh, okay, Alabama did not play well against Ole Miss. Well, let's see how well they play, and if that happens up against more consistently. The Big 12 has been doing it for years and years. The Big 12 doesn't have great defensive talent, and I think it limits them. Personally, right now, and again, they haven't played, I think Ohio State will be better this year, and Clemson is better than Alabama because it is the defense. So there's no difference. It doesn't matter where it's played. Defense that is not efficient is a problem, but there is more talent defensively in the SEC. There is not nearly the talent in the Big 12. That's the biggest difference. The SEC defenses are potentially fixable. Okay, and you're just looking at yards and points. You've got to really get into the film room and know what you're looking at to see that the SEC's defenses have been better, and there's more talent and it's more fixable. The Big 12 is not. Now, whether it will be fixed or not, it's a good question. Do you feel with the COVID situation there could be less coaching changes this year, meaning it hasn't been a normal year for spring ball development all year round? Yes, I've mentioned it several times, Bernsey. And it's not just let's give the coach a pass. It is as much as we got to buy out a coach and go and hire a coach, and the resources financially are not nearly what they have been in previous years. So we're not going to really do that, and this is not a good year to do that. And then you say, well, we're going to raise private money. Well, that's fine. If you can get private money raised in this COVID environment, good luck. But, if you're going to the guy that is an oil baron, let's say, check the price of oil. He might not have as much disposable income. Oh, he can afford to do it, but does he want to drop $20 million that maybe in a different economy he might be willing to do? He might not be as excited about doing that now. So I don't think there'll be as many changes. There'll be some. I don't think there'll be as many. I think it depends on the situation. I think, everybody says, well, you think more changes? Well, there are normally a lot of changes, but where could they be? Well, there are a lot of places it could be, but there are a lot of places where it could be avoided. There are a lot of places where we don't see it changing, but depending upon what happens, it's just a big part of it is how you finish, the trajectory of the program. We appreciate it. Spartan Martin said that's why he subscribed to LandryFootball.com, so you can get more than just stats. Stats only tell part of the story. Appreciate it, Spartan Martin. Look, stats are like a bikini. What they reveal is very intriguing and intoxicating. What they cover up is vital. Okay, it very often is misleading. So look at it. Look at situations. But to Greg's point, the SEC defenses look bad, and they should be called out like anybody else. I think, though, there's consistency. The Big 12 hasn't played defense for a long period. Alabama's, and to this point, and I've said this several times, Greg, if you're going to be an up-tempo offense, if that's what you're going to do, and Alabama's been doing it, and they're going to score a bunch of points, their defense won't be as good. Okay, but here's the difference is they're able to play situational defense. LSU had an explosive offense. The defense was negatively affected all last year by the explosive offense. But when LSU needed defensive stops, they got them. When Oklahoma, when Texas has needed key defensive stops in big national playoff caliber games, and it's only been Oklahoma has been in that position, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Can't get stops. And the difference is, so it's absolutely, to your point, more about offensive football and more about quarterback play and offenses keeping up. But if you can't play defense, then it becomes a shootout game, and it's whoever has the ball last. You marginalize where the game could go. I think being able to at least play good red zone defense and third down defense is crucial to winning titles. And if we have nobody playing good defense, it's going to be a shootout, but then that's where it becomes who knows what's going to happen. The hottest quarterback that day, and, it really does have an effect. And Spartan Martin mentioned, and it's a good point, look what LSU's defense did against that great Clemson offense last year. Clemson had Trevor Lawrence, all that talented receivers. LSU defense stood up pretty good in that game. Now, they did make, Clemson got the lead, by the way, and they couldn't hold it. The defense got stops. So, I think you have to look at it. And Alabama hasn't, certainly last year and the year before, hasn't been good enough defense. And guess what? They haven't won a title either. And so if their defense struggles, they won't win a title this year. If their defense can get better with their offense, listen, it's still more about offense, but you can't be awful on defense. And I don't think there's been an overreaction. You can't look at Alabama's defense and look at what they did in a game or two and say it's comparable to Oklahoma's, who's looked awful now for a few years, several years. It's not the same. If it's several years gone, then I think you can make the case. But right now, you can look at it in this game. Yeah, against Ole Miss, absolutely. Alabama's defense looked like what you'd see in the Big 12. Second half against Georgia, albeit against not a great Georgia offense, stepped up. LSU's defense against Clemson, LSU's defense making stops against Oklahoma. You see the difference. So that's the difference. So let's just see. Some other questions. Bob, big Penn State fan, good buddy there from Pennsylvania, says he's looking at some ball, and he saw some teams. I'm going to kind of shorten it a little bit. It's kind of long. Talk about teams rushing three and playing their linebackers 5 yards off the ball of the line of scrimmage. And if the ball's running linebackers towards the running back rather than starting from a traditional standing position, avoiding fighting off blocks. And he's talking about that because they get a running start. It seems like their opponents are having problems against the run. Linebacker speed is evident. Says the defense seemed to be spreading 5 players, picket line across the field, 5 to 8 yards away, in a zone defense, which almost resemble a cross between the cover 2 and the cover 3. What that is, Bob, is cover 8. That's what that is. He says it is the defensive formation shutting down the high potency of these primary passing offenses. The defensive format has this defensive format always been around? Does it finally start? Yeah, it's always been around. When you use it, how you use it, is the key. Look, what you're seeing is people against passing offenses, and I'm mainly looking at like Arkansas A&M playing against Mississippi State. We said this before week 1 when LSU was going to play Mississippi State. Don't play man coverage. You're going to get caught in all those crossers. Mississippi State just set all sorts of records, and everybody had Mike Leach and Mississippi State going into the College Football Hall of Fame on, just one game. Not just one game because he's had a great career, but just on that performance alone. Well, you can't play it that way. And what you're seeing is people dropping more. If you're going to drop in zone coverage, you're facing the quarterback. And what you can do is create dirty eyes. Basically, you can force the ball into different spots, make him hesitate. The ball doesn't come out as quick. The pass rush can get home, and you have more success. What you do is give up some plays underneath, but they don't get a lot of run after catches. So what you're doing and how you play your front, what you're talking about, Rob, in terms of guys lining up is nothing more than a run blitz. And run blitzes are fine. You can attack the line of scrimmage and you can force the issue. But the key in defense, in anything you do, is gap control. So whether it's your defensive line gaps, whether you're running your running backs in gaps, they have to be coordinated. You can attack upfield, but if you attack the wrong gap or you do it against a zone blocking scheme that does a good job, you're taking yourself out of the play defensively. So there are plenty big plays in the run game that can be had. Ball comes out quickly. Depending on the quarterback that you're playing, ball comes out quickly. If it's inaccurate, you cover in the short zone and you force the ball out, probably you're going to have success. A good quarterback could be able to find that quickly, and then you got not enough people in coverage to defend. So it's not the scheme that's work. I mean, the scheme may be very effective in a situational game, but it's not going to work. I mean, I would not run this against Alabama's offensive line and quarterback and receivers. You will get torched with your run after catch, the ability to defend run after catch against those guys. You need to drop more guys in coverage. That's what you need to do. But yeah, no, it's been around a while. Defense is about gap control. Brian asks, as we'll get into some NFL talk here quickly, Saints have been a really good team for the last several years, but have started each season slowly on both sides of the ball and hit their stride around this point this season. Do you see anything on film? Are there insights as to why this has been the case? Also, do you see them getting better this year than previous years? Well, the key depends on the running game. The running game is the absolute key. I think that if you run the football, they run the football, it protects their defense. It allows them to play more game control, and it allows their ability to make some explosive plays in the passing game. The defense has been inconsistent. The Bucs defense looks a little better right now. The Saints have had the bye week to figure some things out. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Get into some NFL stuff. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. It is always a litmus test when you're going up against the Steelers. I invite you, if you got any questions, check it out. Steelers are playing really good defensively. So I looked at Cleveland, and I wondered, how will they match up? And I think it was a litmus test. It was kind of where they are, and they didn't fare very well. They didn't compete. They made a lot of mistakes, a lot of forced mistakes, no doubt. It is a Steeler team that can rush the passer, create a lot of problems. You put Baker Mayfield under rush pressure, and he struggles. This is a good Cleveland team, but they're not at Pittsburgh's level. Not sure they're at the Ravens level. Although if you get the lead on the Ravens, that's a different story. But I think we learned at this point, it's Pittsburgh, it's Baltimore, Tennessee, it's Kansas City, in no order or the class. And we'll see if somebody else can emerge. We'll see if Buffalo can get a little bit healthy. Over in the NFC, the Bucs are playing good defense. And if they can continue to run the football, they'll be fine. And I think it's them and the Saints. And Saints got an edge in their first win against the Bucs at the beginning of the year. But the Bucs are playing a little bit better right now. Well, the Saints have been off this past week. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be pivotal. Probably going to come down to Saints in Tampa later in the year. Bills, Chiefs, concerned about the Bills' defense at this point. Health-wise, setting the edge in the run game hasn't been very effective. They're not getting enough rush pressure. They couldn't get off blocks to save their life against Kansas City. So those are some real issues that I see that's showing up on film. We got some interesting matchups this week that jump out at me. Steelers, Titans, it's going to tell us a lot. Those are two of the four teams that I mentioned. We get to see them. It's in Nashville. So a little bit of an edge here. But I have said that, like this Pittsburgh team, but I want to see them play better people. Good team in Cleveland this week, an even better team. We'll see. Look out for the Cardinals and the Seahawks. When this Cardinal team is hitting on all cylinders, they're really good. They're playoff caliber good, at least can make it. Not necessarily, I don't think you want to play them if you get in the playoffs, but they're explosive on offense. Defensively is where they've been a little bit up and down. I think this is a dangerous game for Seattle. Seattle's defense has some troubles containing explosiveness. I think it's going to be, Cardinals defense. If they can get a couple of stops here in the second half, they've got a chance to win this. It's in Arizona, so that's an interesting game. A lot of people have asked me about the Bears defense. Bears defense is really good. I mean, they play as good as anybody defensively in this league. Running the football, protecting the football and offense is the key. I don't think they're explosive enough to advance, but there's less strength there in the NFC. I mean, if you're looking at the best teams in the NFC as opposed to the teams in the AFC. I mean, you're looking at Seattle, which the record looks good, but the defense is vulnerable. Tampa is certainly getting better. Saints, nobody in the East. The Pack, Green Bay. I would not rule out Chicago, but I don't think they're explosive enough to advance. But that's a really good team that's going to make the playoffs because they're off to a good start, and their defense keeps them in every game. What's going on with the Cowboys is a further issue of what they have going on with an ownership that creates a culture to where when things go bad, they're not on the same page, and so the play's bad. But the most alarming thing with the first-year coach is you got players now leaking out to the media that our coaches do a bad job. They're not very good at their jobs. Why do they do that? Because they can. Because they know that the owner is the guy that they answer to. It's the owner's ego that creates a culture of the coach just coaches. I'm going to own the team, and I'm going to be the spokesman. I'm going to be the voice, and I'm going to be the decision maker. Well, it doesn't work that way. If your head coach is not your voice of your team, you're in trouble. So it's Cowboys dysfunction. Oh, yeah, again, there's some smattering of talent. Offensive line's not playing well. Got to get the running game going. They're without Dak. Defense is awful. The defense is going to be even worse the more and more it's on the field. But it's, again, a part of an operation that's hodgepodge. It's fantasy football-like with guys that are as qualified to make football decisions as fantasy owners are. And that's what you got with Jerry. And that's the problem that stems through the whole veins of that operation. People say, "Oh, Jerry's great. He gives them everything they want." No, it's quite a bit different. So that's a problem. Hey, want to remind you and want to tell you about our great friends at American Betting Experts. LandryFootball.com and the Scout's Eye on Football is sponsored by American Betting Experts, one of the largest licensed sports and casino vendors in the United States. We've teamed together to provide a special gaming offers to all Landry Football followers and podcast listeners. Here's what you do. Go to our website, LandryFootball.com. Click on the ad located on the right side of the page, top right side. Pick among the gaming sites legal in your state, such as BetMGM, DraftKings, FanDuel, and PointsBet. Sign up and instantly receive an account deposit match or a risk-free bet from $100 to $1,000. It's that easy. Again, go to LandryFootball.com, click on the ad located on the upper right side of the page, and get in on the action with a special offer from American Betting Experts today. Don't forget, do it right now before you forget it. Take advantage of this gaming offer. Again, click on it, pick the gaming site. It's that easy. Thanks to our sponsors, American Betting Experts. Make sure that you join us in our podcast every week. If you can't listen to it live, and again, you can watch us on Twitch TV live at 9 a.m. Central every Wednesday, Scout's Eye on Football. We normally will get you Landry Football Podcast on Thursdays, 9 a.m. This week, we'll be doing SEC football and beyond on Thursdays due to a commitment that I have on Friday. So you will hear the Tuesday and Friday SEC football and beyond, but on this week, you'll get the SEC football and beyond on Thursday. Spartan Barton asks, how has Cam Newton been playing this season? Will he get that contract he's hoping for? Does he need to do more? No, I don't think. I think he's a one-year guy in New England, depending on what New England's able to figure out at the quarterback position. Alternatively, he's been very inconsistent. The layoff and the no practice really hurt his timing. Look, his run threat is what you got to focus on, is what you got to work with. And then you've got to be able to get him some throws outside the pocket that can make this running game go. I don't think that they're a deep playoff run team. I omitted them from my top teams in the AFC at this point. So he's been very inconsistent, and I think has a ways to go. We'll see. I do think what Josh McDaniel can do with this offense will maximize whatever they can get out of them. So we shall see, but I think there's limitations there. All right, folks, we appreciate your questions. We appreciate your involvement in the show. Enjoy the great weekend of football. If you've got a question that you want to send via email, go to contact Chris at LandryFootball.com, and we will address it. And make sure that you join us in the chat room, as so many of the guys did. And we are certainly thinking about Gannicus, who's, I know, going through a lot right now. We appreciate you joining us, supporting us. We appreciate Kevin Killargo and Spartan Barton. Who else? Greg Bernsey joining us, and Greg with his great comments. We appreciate you becoming involved. Spread the word. We want you to be part of the LandryFootball.com family. Check out the membership package at LandryFootball.com. Folks, it's less than $10 a month, less than $5 a month if you take advantage for the year, and you get the film room breakdowns, the previews, the reviews that we provide for you from a coaching and scouting perspective. Look, it's like having your own coaching and scouting department for less than the magazine subscription. So you can't beat that. It's a great tool to arm yourself with during football season. Makes the game more enjoyable. You get more insights into what's going on. You know what goes on, but why it's going on and how to change it, how to correct it. So we really, really appreciate all of your involvement, all of your support. So spread the word around to everybody there. And we'll talk to you next week on another edition of Scout's Eye on College and Pro Football, here part of LandryFootball.com. Take care, everybody.